Hi, and welcome to the onboarding videos for Breadwinner for NetSuite. This is video number 2, writing data to NetSuite. This will include creation, editing, deletion of data in NetSuite. We did video number 1 first because that shows how Breadwinner brings in data from NetSuite to Salesforce. In that video, we discussed how it's Breadwinner's job to bring in all of this data from NetSuite into Salesforce, keep it up to date within minutes, and allow you to view it, report on it, and use it to improve your business processes. This video looks at the other way, from Salesforce to NetSuite. With Breadwinner, there are a couple ways to write to NetSuite. We have our user interface and our guided wizard, and we also have the API, which leverages Salesforce flows and Salesforce Apex. So one of the things to keep in mind is that finance will have different opinions on what you can see versus what you can edit and delete. So if you go to finance and say, hey, I need you to share this invoice with the sales team, let them know if it's been created, let them know if it's been paid, finance will say, sure. But if you say, I need you to let sales edit invoices from last year, who knows what kind of invoices, finance is going to be quite concerned about this because there's tax and legal consequences. So what finance will allow to happen in NetSuite from the sales team, from the operations team, from people other than the finance team, really depends on what you're editing. So for instance, they'll often be happy with you editing NetSuite customers and NetSuite contacts from Salesforce. They may be happy with RevOps creating sales orders. Sometimes invoices and estimates, but usually just sales orders. And they're rarely going to be happy with you, for instance, creating credit memos or deleting other records. Now, some of our customers need to automate everything, and they're going to use the API and flows. And by and large, they can create and edit everything. We have a little star here because we don't work with every single NetSuite object, but we work for the typical objects. And with that, you can use Breadwinner and its API to perform all sorts of automated actions, and there are no restrictions. I'm going to start off in this video dealing with the user interface and guided wizard first, and then we'll touch on the API. So one of the questions the finance team often has is, very politely, they're wondering, hey, can this mess up my NetSuite org? I'm legally responsible. This is financial and tax data. I need to be very secure that Breadwinner is not going to do anything to my org. In fact, when you install Breadwinner for NetSuite in Salesforce, we start off in read-only mode, which means we can't write to NetSuite. It would take a Salesforce admin to come along and change this to active mode. Even then, before we write to NetSuite, a number of things need to happen. You'd need to be a Salesforce admin, or you'd need to have one of Breadwinner's permission sets. And even then, out of the box, you can do fairly limited things to the NetSuite company and contact. And of course, we're going to be able to do more things to the sales order. I'll show that shortly. Let's take a look at what's possible with the NetSuite company. What are the typical responsibilities of the sales or the operations team is making sure that, for instance, the phone number and the email address are up to date. We can edit this customer. And when we're editing it, we're looking at a Breadwinner page in Salesforce, but we're going to be saving this to, I'll just add some zeros here, we're going to be saving this to NetSuite. When we click Save, we are writing to NetSuite, and only upon a successful confirmation are we going to update this back in Salesforce. So a lot of the times people say, well, okay, I can see it's here. When are you going to write it to NetSuite? It's already been written if you're looking at it here. And just to illustrate that point, let's edit this customer again. We're going to do something we really shouldn't. We're going to copy the web address into the email field. Now the email field is nonsensical. It starts with an email address, but it ends with a web address. So NetSuite, if you were to try to do this in NetSuite, it would throw up an error. What happens when we do this from Breadwinner? This error is actually from NetSuite. Breadwinner simply relays this error to you, and nothing has happened. I can go back and that save was never made. It's always made in NetSuite first, and if successful, replicated back. However, it wasn't made in NetSuite successfully, so nothing has changed. You can also, from this page, deal with primary contacts. You can create a contact. You can make an existing contact a primary contact. This is useful as sales orders will typically have primary contacts. So let's take a look at what we've done. We've looked at creating and editing, I'll show you creation in a second, of the NetSuite customers and the NetSuite contacts. Now let's take a look at creating NetSuite customers and sales orders. A lot of times people say, hey, when do I push all my Salesforce accounts to NetSuite? The right answer to that is usually, depends on the company, but usually what we call just in time. So let's say you're dealing with an opportunity or an order or a contract or who knows what, and you want to create a sales order in NetSuite. Now I've already done some background work, which I'll show you in a second, but I'm going to show you the final output first. I'm going to click New Sales Order from Opportunity. We're now in Breadwinner's guided wizard. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to use an existing NetSuite customer. And if you're saying, hey, why are there 4 customers here? Well, it's actually very common to have a situation where there are multiple legal entities, i.e. multiple NetSuite customers, associated with a single Salesforce account. And here we have all of those NetSuite customers. In fact, if we were to go back to the opportunity and in fact back to the parent account, you'll see that this parent account has in fact those 4 affiliated NetSuite companies. Breadwinner can easily handle a one-to-many situation where a single Salesforce account might have multiple legal NetSuite company entities associated with it. Let's go back to the opportunity and I'll restart that process. I'm going to click New Sales Order from Opportunity. We're going to start off by using the existing NetSuite customer, one of the 4 affiliated NetSuite companies, and I'm going to click Next. At this moment, no data has changed. We're just looking at Lightning components, but we can, in one click, write to NetSuite. Why do we show this page? Well, it's surprisingly common for finance to need to handle edge cases. Who knows what those edge cases are? But maybe finance needs to modify the start date or the end date or the sales effective date or do anything on this invoice. When is this common? Well, anytime you get an invoice above, say, $10,000, finance is going to want to spend a minute, usually sanity checking this before it goes forward. I'm going to click Create Sales Order in NetSuite. And this is writing to NetSuite, and only if successful will it then replicate this back. This is the NetSuite defined sales order, and this is everything in NetSuite. And in fact, if you were to go to NetSuite and look up and find the sales order using the NetSuite internal ID, this would be the NetSuite sales order. I'm going to cover this more in another video, but you might have wondered, hey, how did we know which fields to map? When we went from this opportunity, how was it determined what would go into the sales order? Well, I'll show you. Again, there will be another video dedicated to just this, but let's give you at least a bit of an idea what happened. There's going to be a button on the sales order, hopefully with a clear name, as this is our demo org. We even use the word from op. This is going to be a long formula, but that formula is going to handle the mapping for the creation process. We have a lot of documentation on this. Our partners or ourselves can help you with your first order, and once you've done one, it is fairly straightforward. And because of this formula text, this button right here, which is that formula text, allows us to create a NetSuite sales order. And what about the NetSuite company? Could we create that at the same time? Sure, let's do that as well. A more common situation for a brand new Salesforce account is that when you create the new sales order, there aren't going to be any other NetSuite customers. Or maybe there are, but you need to create a new legal entity. And you'll notice as I clicked this radio button, we've just entered a 4-step Kanban. We're going to create NetSuite customer. Had I used an existing one, it's just a 3-step Kanban. But let's create the NetSuite customer. This is all the information you'd equally be asked in NetSuite if you were to create a customer. You might need to pick the subsidiary, which will also potentially determine the currency. You might choose to make a primary contact or not. The grayed out area is all the information from Salesforce. And because this is our demo org, I haven't filled much information in. But if there was any shipping address, that would have been copied over. And in fact, I can even do example customer subsidiary D. And you say, well, wait a second, isn't there a parent company? Yes. It would have been this example customer. So I'm going to create this NetSuite customer, and I could have filled in anything over here, but as this is a demo, we're moving on. Great. That new NetSuite customer has been created. I can, again, if I want to, change any of this information as needed, but I'm simply going to go ahead and click Create Sales Order in NetSuite. And what we've just demonstrated is the creation of a NetSuite company. In this example, it happened to be a subsidiary company that was a child of another company, which is even more complex than the usual case of just creating a new company. So we've covered NetSuite customers, NetSuite contacts, editing them, and then creating a sales order, and often creating a NetSuite customer and a NetSuite contact at the same time. And as I said, we are not going to create or edit or delete credit memos and a large number of other objects, at least not using the user interface and the guided wizard. And for the vast majority of our customers, if they are using our user interface and our guided wizard, this is what they want to create. Now let's take a couple seconds and look at the API. So head over to docs.breadwinner.com, go to NetSuite, go to the global API, feel free to read the quick start guide or the API overview. At the end of the day, you're going to want to eventually write Apex that looks a bit like this. Your custom Apex will interact with our Apex, which will talk to NetSuite. Equally, you can also write this Apex so that flows can interact with it. In fact, we've gone as far as to help you start this process. This can't do everything, but it can hopefully get you 50% of the way there or more. This, by the way, will require a Salesforce developer, usually an experienced Salesforce developer, and if you don't have an experienced developer in-house, will typically require a Salesforce partner. But let's just say you wanted to create a NetSuite sales order using a flow, or trigger. I'll pick trigger. I want to create the NetSuite sales order from a Salesforce opportunity. The line items should come from a related list on that opportunity. Which related list? The opportunity product. Run this trigger. And as you can guess, this gets highly technical. You would pick what the records are coming from. You'd click Generate Apex. Some of these fields are required. Let me fill them in. And you'll get Apex. Again, I'd like to emphasize, if this is the first time you're seeing Apex, don't even think about it. This is going to be quite complicated. Again, you want an experienced Apex developer or a Salesforce partner who can help you with that. But just to review, you can use the user interface and our guide wizard to create and edit NetSuite customers and contacts, to create sales orders using our guided wizard or invoices or estimates, but you cannot delete records or create credit memos. However, with the API, you can create and delete and edit just about everything. Thank you.